Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and my amazing co-host is...
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey, hey. All right, so we are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool advice and community. And today, we are definitely leaning into the imperfect homeschooling, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Absolutely. But first, if you're new around here, we want to officially welcome you to our secular and progressive space. Just so there's no doubt about what that means, we believe that Black Lives Matter, vaccines save lives, your opinion isn't as valid as peer-reviewed research, women's rights and trans rights are human rights. We should abolish ICE and defund the police. And if you're unsure what that means, we'd love to chat with you about it. There's so much misunderstanding about the defund the police thing, right? So come join our next Grown Up Social over on Patreon, and we would love to chat with you about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That defunding the police is a phrase that, it really gets a lot of people super upset because they assume it means a lot of things that it just doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, even my parents, who both worked in law enforcement when I was growing up, agree with a lot of the actual policy changes behind the phrase defund the police. It's not what a lot of people mean. But anyway, wherever you are on the spectrum, if you identify as a progressive homeschooler and you'd like to keep personal religion out of your textbooks and classes, welcome.
For sure. That would be me. Hello. It just feels good to be among like-minded people who are kind, willing to offer support, aren't constantly reminding you that they're praying for your salvation because you use secular resources. I can't.
I have to say, it's been a long time since I lived in a state where people were so proud to tell me they were praying for my soul. And I'm not sad about that. I do not miss it. But all right. Anyway, today's topic, we see this come up often. I mean, often in a lot of online homeschool groups. So today we're going to be talking about homeschooling with chronic illness.
You're right. This comes up in a lot of different ways, too. We see parents with chronic illness feeling isolated and wondering if anyone else is trying this. We see parents or caregivers thinking about homeschooling, but not sure if it's even possible as a result of their chronic illness. And one of my least favorite ways that I see it come up often is fellow homeschoolers casually throwing around their ableist beliefs, making chronically ill homeschoolers feel both invisible and worse about how well they're juggling all of the things.
Yeah, the ableism is definitely alive and well in the homeschooling groups. And so, look, even if you aren't personally dealing with chronic illness, I'd really encourage you to stick around and listen to the whole episode. Hopefully, you'll find today's podcast both helpful for just unpacking some things and also maybe useful in making a game plan for being more supportive of those in your various communities who are parenting and homeschooling with chronic illness.
Yeah, I mean, I'd 100% support that. Full disclosure, I do not have chronic illness. Amanda does. We'll talk about that in a second. But we did a thing one time. We were doing service projects at our homeschool co-op, and a person came in and they were talking about making care packages, or in North Carolina, as they're called, blessings bags, that you can hand out, right? When you were talking about not living in a place like that where they pray for your soul all the time. Too many of those dates on my resume. But it was interesting because this person came in and they were talking about the things that are most beneficial. And one of the things they talked about that I would never have thought of because that's not my lived experience was how often people who are unhoused have poor dental health, which makes perfect sense. I mean, most people in America struggle with dental health because for some reason teeth and eyeballs aren't covered under your health insurance, which is the dumbest thing ever. But for me, when I would buy stuff like that, I would buy individual snack bags of nuts or something like that because I'm thinking protein and healthy fat. And so it's like when you have somebody who has more insight into something, explain to you how you can be a better ally, how you can be a better support partner, all of that. It makes such a world of difference. So I'm excited. I feel like I've learned a bunch working with you over the years, but I'll probably learn something today too about like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that anymore. So yeah. So as I said, I do not have chronic illness, much like Amanda is not parenting with my house on fire ADHD brain. So, we're all coming at it from our own perspective. But given that Amanda does, in fact, homeschool with chronic illness, she's definitely going to take the lead on today's episode. And I always like it when we talk about stuff that's in your wheelhouse. And I just kind of get to sit here and be like, good point. So I'm excited about today. Do your thing, Amanda. Have fun.
Okay, so before we go any further, I do want to just say, obviously, I am not talking for everyone who has chronic illness. There's different experiences, different symptoms, different to everything. But this is hopefully some insight for whoever is listening into what it can be like. Please don't come at me because something I said doesn't resonate with you, even though you have chronic illness. Okay, thank you. That's out there. So look, I got my first disability placard nearly 2 decades ago, and I will never forget the internal struggle I had as a 27-year-old who needed this accommodation, but I very much did not want to have to use it in public or at work because that meant explaining myself and more accurately defending myself. And that's hard. That's a hard place to be. But before we really get into all of that, let's make sure that we take the time to share what's happening in our lives. We try to make sure every episode starts with just a recap of what's been going on, because the reality is real life is not a social media highlight reel. And we all deserve to be reminded that our messy moments and bad days are totally normal. No one is actually living a highlight reel. And if they say they are, they're just lying to you. I firmly believe that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Megan, how's life? How's it going in your world these days? And also, let me just put out there, you recently celebrated your birthday. So happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I did. Yes, it was quite fun. I had lunch with my parents and my kids the day before my birthday and went to IKEA with my mom on my birthday. So that was fun. So yeah, busy stuff. We've just finished the April unit study, which is centered around World Art Day, which is April 15th. So it's coming up if you're listening to this when the episode airs. But the unit study is good all year long. And we did it different than I think anybody would, mainly because we're us and we have our own unique spin on things and whatever. But there's some really awesome stuff in there about art and finding your voice, and people who have aphantasia, and it's hands-on art projects, and it's Banksy and his political statements through art. And I mean, it's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. It was fun. And there's a writing assignment in there, because if there's not a writing assignment, Amanda's like, we need a writing assignment. So there's a writing assignment in there that compares two really cool paintings. There's diversity in the artists, and oh my gosh, there's environmental stuff in there about reuse art. I mean, it's good. It's good. So we're recording this, and I'm thinking it'll be out like tomorrow-ish.
Maybe. We'll see.
Thursday-ish, right? We'll see how it goes, right? Yeah, ish. Here's the key. Follow us on social media. It'll be on there. It'll be on Instagram, Facebook, Patreon when it's out officially. And there's always a thing like comment this keyword, and then we'll send you the link to the unit study. So don't stress about it, but we've got it, right? So yeah, so that was super fun, right? I'm a creative person, so I enjoyed working on this one. I enjoy all of them. But yeah, it was fun. So yeah, we have a lot of projects going on though. We've got stuff going on related to courses and books and all sorts of stuff. So it's just been like busy, but all good things. Status quo for this quote unquote school year. I mean, we're very unschooly, but my kids still like to participate in things that run on a school calendar year. So we're just kind of finishing out the year, but still just busy planning stuff for the summer, for the fall, getting stuff organized. And yeah, it's a lot with 3 teenagers and trying to coordinate logistics. And this session doesn't jive with your schedule because of this. And this session doesn't, I can't book that because I'm waiting on a date for this other thing. And it's, that whole thing. You're all doing it. You know what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain it. So yeah, there's that. And then my goal for this week is to start. I don't know if you're familiar with Adrienne on YouTube. She's like the queen bee of yoga. She's based in Austin. She has this really cute dog named Benji, but she has this 30-day yoga challenge on her YouTube channel that's super duper popular. And I am saying it here as an accountability measure because I am determined to start the third. I'm not going to promise you I'm going to finish it in 30 days because I've done her 30-day yoga challenge before in more like a 36-day range, but I finished it. And so I'm going to go with that. But yeah, so that's starting this week. And the only thing holding me back is I need to get a yoga mat because when we moved, I got rid of my yoga mat. It had seen a lot of yoga classes. And so I was like, do I really need to move this across the Atlantic Ocean or can I just replace this? And so that's a work in progress. I'm going to the mall one day and I will pick one up there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You have a trip to Decathlon in your future.
I know. So I went to Decathlon yesterday or the day before, but it's in the States, it's like a Dick's Sporting Goods kind of thing, but they didn't have any pretty yoga mats. So I didn't buy one.
Okay.
So I got 2 yoga blocks, which I also needed, but I didn't get a yoga mat. So at the mall, there's a couple of other sporting goods stores and there's a bigger Decathlon. So I was like, well, they'll have a bigger selection. So that's my game plan. But yeah, it needs to be pretty.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, what's new in your world this week?
You know, homeschooling is mostly going fine. I've been feeling just a little off. It's actually like really timely that we're doing an episode on chronic illness because I'm like, okay, well, I'm finally on the mend from the craziness that happened for months over the winter. The cough is mostly gone. I'm on the mend. And so I was like, what is happening? Like, why am I feeling so rough? And then I kind of realized I almost always have a pretty big flare that starts like late February, early March, and goes into the summer. It usually wraps up sometime between June and July. It's fairly weather dependent, which a lot of people with chronic illnesses find that they have certain things or times of the year that are challenging. And where I live, we have a marine layer and there's lots of changes in the barometric pressure and stuff. And it seems to kick off this really extended flare for me. And I think maybe that's what's happening. And I had just been so sick leading up to this that the changes are a little bit different than normal. So yeah, that kind of sucks because I don't know why it wasn't on my radar, but it's here and there's a lot more brain fog than usual. And well, I say than usual, but it happens every year for half of the year. So I just wasn't prepared for it, I guess.
It took you by surprise.
Yeah, that's it. It really did. It has really taken me by surprise. And so just trying to retool and figure out like, oh yeah, this happens and how do I deal with that and how do we move forward? So that's going on. And then it's a total first world problem. I completely realize that and accept it. But our air conditioner, technically our central air, is on its last legs. So we've started the process of getting the quotes for it. We've had a bit of a heat wave here in Southern California, and it's become quite apparent that the AC is not doing what it used to be able to do, which in fairness, it's 21 years old, which is a really long time for a central air unit on the coast next to the ocean. But yeah, wow, those prices. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that I wasn't really planning on spending right now. So that's
go buy
exciting.
the April unit study and maybe another one while you're there.
and 4 copies of every bundle, please and thank you. I don't even know, man. I mean, like, it's one of those things we could put it off, but when the summer heat comes, if the AC really goes belly up, then we'll be months waiting for them to be able to get here because everyone's AC will die. So it's a good thing we've noticed now, and we have a couple of months to get it fixed. And we do points and travel hacking, and I've been holding off on getting this Chase credit card that has 6 months, no interest. So
it's the time.
Yep. We'll do that, and we'll make some sign up bonus points on it and spread out those payments and it'll be fine and we'll have air conditioning. But yeah, I was like, money, I mean, like we're not the only ones that are feeling it and a bit sick. So all of our health insurance bills are coming in and we have an HSA because we have one of those high deductible plans, but it still sucks to see like, $400 bill, $500 bill, $700 bill, and they're all rolling in and you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Money grows on trees. This will be wonderful. So yeah, Yay!
Yeah.
Yay, tax season.
Oh my gosh. Please don't. I haven't even started.
We got
Um,
ours done. We got ours done,
ugh,
thankfully. So,
haven't even started.
yeah.
I get a thing every day from the guy who does the tax. It's not from him. It's an automated thing, but
Yeah.
it's like, reminder, fill out the starting worksheet that like starts the process. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. I just have to tell my husband, I'm not doing this. You do this, and make him do it. But yeah. When we bought our starter home as young people, it said our air conditioner was on its last legs on the inspection report. But I'm married to MacGyver. He's a brilliant engineer. And so he breathed life into that thing for 2 or 3 years
Mhm.
still after that. And our air conditioning bills were very high. We lived in Miami. And we knew if we got a new unit, but we were super young. Right? We were like 25, 26. I was pregnant with our first child when we bought the house. And for what it's worth, anybody who was buying property at that time, we bought the house in South Florida in August of 2007. So if you roll back your time machine and remember, that was like the worst possible time because everything crashed out in the next 6 months. So we were like, we'd rather keep whatever cash we have in the bank. My husband got laid off during the recession. It was a whole thing. So we were
Yeah.
just paying the higher air conditioning bills. I did the thing with the power company where they spread it out over the year to make it a little bit better and whatever. And it would be like 10 o'clock at night and the air conditioner would stop working and my husband would be out there with a flashlight and he'd get it going again. And then it finally died in January, which is like the best weather we have in South Florida. And my husband was like, if it died in January, it's dead. He's like, we have reached the limit of what this thing is going to do. And so we had to suck it up and spend the money and put it out and whatever. But then our air bills went down. So, okay, fine. But man, it sucked. So we tried for a really long time to just make that work as long as we possibly could. But yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. No, that's nice. My husband is very handy as well, but we live in a condo building. So our air conditioner unit lives on the roof, and individual homeowners don't have access to the roof for good reason. But it's one of those things that when you have someone come over, when you need to do anything, you have to like schedule it with the building engineer and they escort you onto the roof. And so you can't just be up there fixing it whenever you want. You have to be licensed, bonded, and insured to work on the air conditioning unit. You can't even do your own maintenance to protect the whole community and the roof and all of that. So like, I get it. It's one of those trade-offs, right? For living in the kind of communal living space that we live in versus having our own house. On the plus side, like our AC is going to be like $8,000, which is stupidly expensive. But my best friend, they have this cute little bungalow and their air conditioning, because it was some specialty unit, it cost them $24,000. I was like, no, thank you. $8,000 is like, I mean, stupidly expensive, but at least I have $24,000. Like, holy.
Oh yeah. Cause we've had houses with 3 units, 3 full central units. And it's like, oh my God, please just do not let anything go wrong with multiples at the same time. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. True story.
And now we live in Portugal and there's not an air conditioner inside.
It's
right?
good luck finding one.
Yeah.
The air conditioners are those things where you put ice cubes and it puts some cold water over the ice cubes. Like, doesn't that feel like an air conditioner?
Yeah.
No, not really, but
no. Yeah. I mean, we had an episode we podcasted last summer and I just blatantly started the episode and was like, I'm not wearing any pants and I have no bra on. It's too hot. I am sitting here, but this is what's happening. I am sweating to death in my chair, but I'm here. So yeah, anyhow. All right. Homeschooling with chronic illness. Here we go. While this episode is specifically about chronic illness, a lot of what we're going to talk about also applies to other invisible challenges. Things like disabilities, mental health struggles, immediate health struggles that aren't chronic, but also aren't just the flu sweeping through your home. Heck, even things like suddenly having bonus kids to care for or elderly parents that need much more hands-on caregiving. All of this stuff can turn your world upside down. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is universal to those things. So, like Amanda alluded to earlier, hopefully this episode will resonate with those who are living with chronic illness, but also hopefully it will be helpful and useful for those who have friends or community members who are navigating homeschooling with chronic illness. So let's start at the beginning. When you first started homeschooling, Amanda, did you worry that you might not be able to homeschool or maybe homeschool well because of your chronic illness?
I mean, the short answer is, of course, yes, I worried. The vast, vast majority of folks with chronic illness or chronic health issues in general are very aware of their limitations. We don't need other people telling us our limitations. We really understand them. Unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges, I think, of having a chronic illness or a bunch of them because they travel in groups is that it's really hard for healthy people to understand just how much it impacts nearly every aspect of your life. Even those closest to you often don't see or really understand just how hard things can be. Occasionally, when you're having a flare or struggling with PEM, or on the daily when you have to take a nap after showering, or if washing your hair means you can't cook or drive anywhere for the next 24 hours, or maybe brain fog means that some days you're totally on top of all of the things and other days you can't string a coherent sentence together to save your life. So, I mean, yeah, we know how different our life is, especially because most of the time we were once healthy adults. So the comparison doesn't start with others. It often starts with who we used to be and what we used to be able to do, and the fact that we know we're not that person anymore. Also, before we go any further in this episode, as an aside, if you are new to life with chronic illness and you haven't yet found a good therapist, please, please try to make it happen. I know it's expensive. We were just talking about how insanely expensive life is in general these days. And it's not necessarily easy, especially the way the economy and finances and all of that are right now. But there are therapists who specialize in helping people newly diagnosed with chronic illness learn how to just let go of the anger and the resentment that comes with that diagnosis and embrace their new normal. It was such an important and significant part of the process for me. And it has absolutely allowed me to handle the ever growing list of diagnoses that I've accumulated over the last couple of decades. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're new around here, we are big fans of therapy, whether it's specialists or employee assistance programs or community organizations that offer a sliding scale. There is absolutely no shame in therapy. And if you're new to the therapy world, please know that it can take multiple attempts to find the right fit. So, and that sucks when you're really struggling because you're like, I just want help. And now you're giving me an extra task of having to screen and set up appointments and go through this whole thing and wait and blah, blah, blah. But if the first one is a bust, please stick with it. Ask around, try new therapists. You'll find your person eventually. Yeah. So obviously you didn't let your fears hold you back from homeschooling. Hooray. Because then we wouldn't be here. What would we be doing on this Thursday evening if you weren't homeschooling?
I have to tell you right now, I'd be napping, but that's a whole other story.
I don't have chronic illness and I might be napping too. But anyhow, as a homeschooler with chronic illness, do you worry about letting your kiddo down?
I mean, again, let's be honest. My kiddo was sent home from Montessori kindergarten due to COVID. So I was very fortunate that I had this unique chance to ease into homeschooling, both from the perspective of my kid was technically in virtual school during COVID, where he was basically learning nothing, but also there were nearly zero expectations for me to fix that. And also, while the world shutting down was hard in some ways, the much, much slower pace of life was fantastic for my fibromyalgia and my chronic fatigue syndrome. I achieved a level of rest and balance I hadn't felt since becoming a mom. So with all of that said, sure, yes, I do totally worry about letting my kid down. Big picture, I'm still homeschooling, even if I got to ease into it during COVID. Just a few weeks ago, we were up in Tahoe. I mentioned this in a previous podcast. We were up there for a week doing work and school and snowboarding. And one afternoon, the kiddo and I made plans to walk up to the nearby restaurant for burgers for lunch. He's a big fan of burgers. And this is something that we don't do very often. We rarely go out to eat. We're still quite COVID cautious, so we don't eat in restaurants. And we go out for lunch even less often because if we are going to do it, we usually go out as a family and it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, we were going to go get lunch, just the two of us, and then attend a Bob Ross painting class, which I was like kind of geeking out about, and it was going to count as art for the week. And it's a beautiful day. We head out on foot and we get about halfway to the restaurant. And I have the worst asthma attack I ever remember having. Right now, again, we've talked about it before. I've been struggling with this never ending lung infection and the asthma exacerbation that causes for several months now. And I do not know why I didn't think about what a bad idea it was to go out for a walk at a higher elevation, but I didn't. And so, like, I almost pass out. I've got black spots, I've got tunnel vision. And of course, I forgot my emergency inhaler in the room because I've been struggling with brain fog. Thankfully, I had my phone on me. I have a kid that's old enough to be able to use it. So he called his dad, who was just in the room on a work call, and he was able to come and pick us up with the car and take us back to the room. I got my asthma under control. Like, I was fully out of commission in bed for the rest of the day. And I was still pretty messed up the next day. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely felt terrible that our fun afternoon got canceled because of my poor health, my chronic health condition, these issues that just never seem to let up and go away. And look, when I'm not in the moment, I can logically see that the vast, vast majority of parents sometimes disappoint their kids. Sometimes they let them down. They can't afford the summer camp that they really want to attend or the travel league that they really want to join. Maybe they can't commit to a time consuming sport or hobby because there just isn't the time for whatever reason. Things get canceled or postponed because of illness in every family. Honestly, probably even more frequently in families with kids in brick and mortar schools because those things are just giant petri dishes. But it is still hard to remember when you're in the middle of a flare or an attack or whatever your specific chronic illness causes. It's hard to remember that everyone struggles with this. And it really
Mhm.
feels like, how, like, I feel so horrible. It's my fault. I've done this. It's hard.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, how I had to disappoint my kids because their residency card hadn't come and they couldn't go to England for a Pokemon thing they really wanted to go to. And it was so funny because I thought about it after the fact and I was like, should I delete that when I edit the episode? Because like the world is on fire. And I said in the episode, like, I get this is a first world problem, like whatever. But I think it's a universal thing, like that you don't want to disappoint your kids. And if you never got to be disappointed over anything because there's always somebody who has it way worse than you, like you can't function like that. I mean, I fully acknowledge that parents who are trying to parent in Iran and Gaza have a way harder time than I'm having right now with my children. Like I fully get that, but it doesn't change the fact that it sucks when you're in the moment and you don't want to have to disappoint your kids. It completely sucks. But I can see how it's hard to remember. I mean, I've talked about the fact that I have anxiety and like when you're in the middle of anxiety, logic just goes out the window. None of that works. So it's probably, I imagine, somewhat similar in the sense that you're like, after the fact, you're like, all right, I can infuse a bit of logic here and diffuse this guilt feeling a little bit better, but in the moment it sucks even more. So you're absolutely correct that it happens to everybody, but that doesn't make it any easier. Yeah, I mean, I think this idea that most homeschoolers occasionally disappoint their kids and we beat ourselves up for it more than necessary, or sometimes more than is healthy, hello, guilty, can also be seen in the ways that we feel pressure to achieve this mythical level of ideal homeschool parenting. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, the Pinterest perfect homeschool parent, the Instagram perfect homeschool parent isn't real. No one is perfect. And we will say that again and again and again. And there's one influencer in her floral dress that I can see in my mind who perpetuates this toxic freaking stereotype. And every time she comes up, I just want to like, first of all, I send them to Amanda and I rage. But then also I just want to like reach through the phone and be like, what you are doing is so damaging to other homeschool parents. And I think especially women more so. But yes. Anyway, seriously, there is this idea that grown-ups who homeschool should be like endlessly energetic, hyper organized. Ugh. Anyway, constantly facilitating enrichment where your kids are in everything and they're here and they're there and you always have the newest and the bestest of everything. It's too much. We've read so many books in our book club and we talk about it so much on the podcast, this idea of quote unquote should be. As soon as you start thinking I should be this or my homeschooler should be that, it's time to take a step back, unpack that a little. Like, does it really need to be that thing? Should it really be that thing? All of the above.
Well, that's it exactly, right? Healthy, as in non-toxic homeschooling, does not require endless energy or constant parent-led enrichment. And that applies whether you have chronic illness or not. I mean, sure, if you're homeschooling with chronic illness, it does mean you need to be brutally honest with yourself about your limits and your non negotiables and how you're going to protect and conserve your energy to make it work. But you're already doing that with parenting and your other adult relationships and possibly work. You're already doing it.
Mm-hmm. What you're saying kind of reminds me of the idea of energy budgeting, or the more kind of pop culture term that I use quite often, which is the spoon theory. If you're not familiar with the spoon theory, which I love, there's plenty of resources about it online. But in general, it's this idea that you start each day with a certain number of spoons, let's say 10 spoons, and everything you do uses a certain number of spoons. So maybe a shower uses 1 spoon, but a shower where you wash your hair, 3 spoons. Making an easy meal, 1 spoon. Making a healthy meal from scratch, 2 spoons. A stressful conversation with a family member or a coworker, 3 spoons. A day of staying at home and homeschooling uses 2 spoons, where a day that requires you to drive somewhere and navigate crowds, 4 or 5 spoons. So if you were following along with the math there, you might have thought to yourself, that math doesn't math. And I'm not even good at math and I could do that one. There's no way you could do all that stuff with 10 spoons. And you are correct. And that's the whole point behind the spoon theory. You don't have enough spoons to do all the things every single day. So you have to get really familiar with your energy limits and use your spoons wisely. It doesn't mean you avoid that stressful conversation that's going to use a third of your spoons, but maybe you make sure that you don't have it on the same day that you plan to drive your kids somewhere and navigate crowds. That would send you over the edge if you're like me. Or maybe you don't plan to cook 3 healthy meals a day from scratch, because then with everything else that you have going on that day, you're out of spoons before you even finish making dinner and nothing else gets done. But everybody will be well fed. So
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. I personally use more of a general point system in my own head, but I'll definitely talk about spoons with others because, like you said, it's a bit of a common language that a lot
mhm.
of people understand these days.
Except for
Um,
the people who don't. And then when you say I'm out of spoons and they're like, why are we talking about cutlery? You know?
it's true. Every once in a while, you run across the person who has no idea, and you're just like, oh boy. But, look, the reality of homeschooling with chronic illness is that you really do have to be aware of the energy you have and how best to use it. And I'm going to talk more about it at the very end of the episode with some specific strategies I use in case they're helpful for you. But more generally, I think it also means it's extra important to lean into things like audiobooks and documentaries and project based and unit study learning, whether it's just an interesting podcast or a history curriculum in audiobook format. Your kids can be learning in the car on the way to a play date or while hanging out with you at your doctor's appointment. And it's just that thing, right? Learning can happen wherever you need to squeeze it in. Some days are going to be good days where you've got loads of energy and you get loads done. And some days are going to be survival days where truly, as long as everyone is fed, even if that's just cereal all day for every meal, and that's a win. Like
Mhm.
some days are going to be somewhere in the middle when you homeschool from the couch or your bed. There's no rule that says kids can only learn in a chair at a desk in the homeschool room.
I'd venture to say most homeschool kids are not learning in a chair at a desk the majority of the time.
Yeah.
That makes up probably a slimmer percentage. So do not feel guilty if that's what it looks like in your household, because you're thinking everyone else is doing it this other way and I'm not. So
Yeah.
yeah, the flexibility to make learning look however it works best for you and your kiddo is one of the best things about homeschooling. So embrace it and rock it. And that's true even if you're homeschooling with chronic illness, probably more so. We're going to talk more about how that flexibility can actually be hugely advantageous for those with chronic illness. But before we do, we just want to share, if you have found this episode because you're thinking about homeschooling and you're like, I have chronic illness and can I do this? Or even if you don't have chronic illness and you're just here because maybe a family member does and you're looking to learn more. But if you're thinking about starting to homeschool, or if you've been homeschooling for a little bit and you're like, I need to tweak things, we need to polish this up a little bit. Just a reminder that Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, that's us, me and Amanda. We offer online courses that cover getting started with preschool and kindergarten. There's a Homeschool 101 course that is your starting point. That is the place to go, figuring out your goals, your kiddos' learning styles, your educational style, so much more stuff in there about deschooling. And then there's a course on secular curriculum, which is mostly Amanda, that includes suggestions for various subjects by age, words and phrases to watch out for when it comes to whitewashed curriculum and all sorts of other garbage that's out there, a guide for evaluating curriculum before you buy curriculum, because who has extra money to be throwing around on stuff that's not a fit? And the best part is our courses are really affordable. Like, for the most part, the price of Amanda's burger that she would have gone out to for lunch, that's our courses. We made them super affordable and they're yours forever. And they come with a super handy workbook. You can do it with your parenting partner if you are a little bit misaligned when it comes to goals and education for your children, which never happens. We never hear about that. But they aren't one of those like, buy this and you have access for 3 months. You can revisit it whenever you need to. But we'll make sure everything is linked in the show notes, and they're on Instagram under courses in our highlights on our profile page there. I mean, you can send us a DM. And if you're following us on social media, at least once a week, there's something on there about like, comment this thing if you want information on our courses. So we will make sure you can find them. But we did an episode a while ago called The Problem with Crowdsourcing Your Homeschool Advice. And if you're thinking, should I spend $17 on this thing or should I just ask in a Facebook group? Listen to that episode for all the really great examples of why you should not just ask in a Facebook group to make these decisions. The course is concise and it's just a straight breadcrumb trail to being able to start confidently and successfully. So come join us.
Okay, so let's get back to flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Homeschooling provides loads of flexibility, and that can be incredibly beneficial to all families, but it has been especially beneficial in our family, given my specific health issues. So I am unable to work a full-time job. Honestly, I'm unable to work a more traditional part-time job. But for our family, that means my husband is the primary earner by a lot. Okay. And one of the many things that I deal with is that getting around by moving vehicle makes me feel awful. Not just car sick awful, but it causes this weird kind of brain meltdown that can last days. Car, bus, subway, it doesn't matter. And traveling by car or whatever multiple days in a row guarantees at least a day or two bedbound as I attempt to recover. So practically, this means our family, we live in an urban neighborhood that's very walkable. But the school my child is zoned into isn't walking distance. And because we're in an urban neighborhood, we don't qualify for bus service. So I would need to drive my child to and from school every day. My husband's work simply doesn't allow him to be responsible for daily drop off and pickup duties. He can absolutely help here and there, but his schedule is just not flexible enough for him to be able to be there every morning and afternoon. He could try to find a different job, but he's in a pretty niche job. And like I said, we need his income. And let's be real, his health insurance.
Okay.
With homeschooling, I don't have to worry about whether or not I can get my child to school every day and on time. So we don't have tardies and we're not in trouble for blah, 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 blah. You hear about that all the time in groups.
Mm-hmm.
Homeschooling, honestly, it allows me to also continue traveling in a way that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Before I got sick, it wasn't a big deal to jet off for a long weekend. But now I need to schedule in rest days and slow days, a rest day after a long flight, a rest day followed by a slow day after every tour that we do or every day we spend exploring. That sort of travel is much, much slower than most Americans are used to, thanks to school calendars and our incredibly limited paid vacation time policies. But it works great for someone who is a part-time world schooler.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's no coincidence that when the kids are out of school too, it's way more expensive to
Yeah,
travel. So
that's
it
true.
allows us to be able to travel when it's less expensive. One of my kids was trying to plan a little like getaway with some friends from summer camp. And they had come up with this idea that they were going to go to France the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I didn't want to like poo poo their plans when they came up, but I was like, that sounds fun. Sure, go for it. And then they looked at how much it cost to travel to France between Christmas and New Year's. And they were like, and the three of them were like 18, they were like, what the heck? I was like, yeah, welcome to. If I had said it, it wouldn't have had the same
No.
impact. But when I was like, so yeah, but yeah, and like you said, but slow travel is not as common in the U.S. because of our vacation life. I mean, you see these memes online that's like European out of office, like I'll be back in September, and then American out of office is like I'm having an open heart surgery on my lunch hour, but I'll be back online at 2 p.m. and we'll answer your emails then. So it's just very, very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
works differently. Another thing that sometimes gets overlooked or minimized is the fact that homeschoolers often want to focus on teaching life skills and encouraging their kids to be independent learners. And this is often an important aspect of family life for parents or caregivers living with chronic illness. That independence becomes really key to the success of this whole adventure.
Well, that's it. Starting from a pretty young age in our home, and when I say pretty young age, I mean like probably around 4, my kiddo started learning how to make sure that he had healthy, nutritious breakfast. And yeah, it involved prep on my end and some pre-baking when I was feeling up to it, and things like signs with photos in the kitchen because he couldn't read yet. But it worked. And he has definitely continued to build on those skills over the years, learning how to actually cook things instead of just what things were healthy and nutritious to start with. And he's learned how to bake for himself and for the family. Those are great skills to have. And you're
Hmm.
just scaffolding from a young age. Laundry was the same. He started around the same age, helping with matching socks and folding his own clothes, or kind of folding his own clothes, helping load the washing machine, which eventually evolved right into being able to actually do loads of laundry on his own. And don't get me wrong, I'm all about kids staying kids as long as possible, but I am also a firm believer in making sure that they head out into the world as young adults, at least mostly capable of taking care of themselves. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're not bringing up like a Duggar buddy system here where these kids are raising themselves and others, but we're giving them the life skills that they need. And in our house, I've had a saying for forever that's everyone who lives in this house will contribute to the running of this house. I mean, do you eat off dishes? Do you wear clothes? All of that. Why is this my job? Right? It's partially my job, but it's everybody's job to keep these things up and maintain them and chip in wherever is necessary. So, and they're going to
Yeah.
need those skills, whatever they decide to do after they leave your nest. They're going to
Yeah.
need those skills. So, just like the self-directed learning and the time management skills that your kiddo is practicing on the days that you're stuck in bed will ultimately serve them well at college. All of these things help kids build the skills that they're going to need. So, independence and confidence, empathy and compassion. Oh, do we need so much more of that right now? Adaptability and flexibility, problem solving skills. These are all skills that are transferable to so many other aspects of life that they would be gaining by homeschooling with a person who has different needs, different spoon quantities, etc.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. And I do want my kiddo to learn and master all of those things. And I have read plenty of parenting books and articles that say most parents aren't doing enough to teach these things when kids are little. These are skills that need scaffolding from a young age, which, as a parent with chronic illness, I did tend to do more often from an earlier age. However, I do still sometimes feel guilty about that. I think that's inevitable to an extent. Even when you know the research says these things aren't bad, or even that these things are good, you still know that you've got chronic illness. And that's what led you to implement the systems that fostered that independence and those life skills. And, it's just like you look around and you're like, my kid was learning loads and has friends and gets to experience way more field trips than I did when I was in public school. Sometimes the guilt about not doing enough or the fear that maybe your kiddo is missing out on something, it still rears its ugly head. My years of therapy remind me that it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to acknowledge them. It's good to acknowledge them, but then it's also important to make sure I fact check them before I let them really take root.
Well, the interesting thing is, we talked about it in book club not that long ago. We were reading this book, How to Raise Kids Who Aren't Assholes. And it was so funny because the author was like, if you approach your kids this way, this is going to happen. And if you approach your kids this way, this is going to happen. And my comment in book club, and I think I said it in the podcast episode too, was like, so basically no matter what you do, you're fucking this up and you're totally screwing this up. And it's going to be not what you intend. Right. And so it's so interesting hearing you talk about this because I do not have chronic illness, but I made the choice, which is very different, to have 3 kids in under 4 years. And so when I look at the expectations that my oldest had versus the expectations that my youngest had, and then it's that feeling of guilt, like, oh my gosh, did I make him grow up too soon because I had 2 other babies that needed this? And so it's that thing, like, I think even if you're not listening from a place of chronic illness, there's always a reason as a parent, I feel like, to beat yourself up over something. So just remember, if you're beating yourself up over your chronic illness, most parents are beating themselves up over something. We all feel like we're screwing this up and we're failing in some way. So if you're doing a good job, it's okay. And I think we talked about it before. We've talked about it on other episodes. As homeschoolers, we're probably more likely to have those thoughts. And a lot of times that misguided guilt pop up because it's just so far outside of mainstream society, the choices that we've made or the path that we are on, whether it was a choice or not. And there are so many messages around us that are telling us what's best and what's quote unquote normal. I hate that word. So I can definitely see how homeschooling with chronic illness in such an ableist society would cause even more of those questions and fears. But ableist bullshit shouldn't get to dictate how your family works or anything else. Just it's hard. It's easy to say, like, brush it off, but yeah. So, okay. So practical tips, like we can sit and commiserate because that feels good too. We did an episode not that long ago about why we're so perpetually tired. And we didn't offer a ton of tips. We had some, but some of it was just commiseration. It was just like, if you're tired, we get it. We're tired too. Homeschooling is a lot. But let's do some actual tips. So what are some specific things beyond what you've already mentioned that you've done in your home to make your homeschooling and chronic illness work?
Well, here at Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, right? If you listen regularly, you know, but for those who aren't regular listeners, we aren't big fans of all-in-one curriculum. I mean, we've done entire episodes on that and why. So if you're like, what do they mean by that? Go back and listen. But that said, I am a big fan of low prep options, open and go, things with teacher guides, pacing guides. You don't need to follow them to the letter by any means, but they can be so useful just to help you not expend the extra energy that comes with starting from scratch. If someone's already laid it out, you can be like, well, that will work for us. We don't need to do that. That works. I'll tweak this a little, but it just takes a lot less energy to tweak than it does to just build from the ground up.
Start with a blank piece of paper.
Right? Exactly. And then implementing systems. And again, we've talked about this a lot. I have talked before in other episodes about how I create an annual lesson plan in early August. I know a lot of people don't understand it. They don't get why I do that. It covers pretty much an entire calendar year with plenty of built-in breaks and makeup weeks and flexibility. But for me, sometimes my brain fog is just so bad that I can't remember what we're working on, what we just finished, what we're supposed to be doing. And it's not just a day kind of thing. My brain fog can go on for weeks at a time. So it's helpful for me to be able to just look on a single spreadsheet and see what comes next in every subject. I don't have to think too hard and I don't have to rely on a really foggy brain. something like that might work for you. Maybe a spreadsheet isn't the answer. You know what systems you have found, but whatever system is working in other areas, you can find ways to implement that in homeschooling as well. You can also do like an easy day every week. If you know Mondays are always hard because you have to recover from a weekend of stuff and responsibilities and errands and all of that, or maybe it's Wednesday that's always hard because you have to drive to a class on Tuesdays. Make the hard day an independent learning day. You can do this with a week or even a month. If you know the first week of every month is always challenging because your job is super intense the first week of every month, or maybe December is always hard because it's budget season or whatever the case may be, or maybe it's April because you work in taxes, whatever it is, that's fine. Make those weeks or months independent learning time. For me, I like to have a bunch of unit studies on hand for these times, whether it's a day, a week, a month. And I organize them by easiest to hardest, hardest being the most work from me. So I like the Homeschool Moms Unfiltered unit studies because I help create them. I vetted everything. I know that I'm comfortable with all of the stuff in there and that it aligns with my values. So those are ones that I can just send to my kiddo via email, and he can easily do it pretty much completely on his own, which is great for the days when I really can't make my brain work, or I can't stay awake. There are days that I'm just nodding off no matter what I do. Whereas like Mint and Bloom unit studies, also great, highly recommend them, but they definitely need a little more support from me. So those are good for the days that I'm maybe really tired and I'm going to lay on the couch, but my brain is still working fairly well and I can support or answer or explain things. And then I also keep a running list. Personally, I use Google Sheets so that it's on my computer and on my phone, but I just keep a list of podcasts and documentaries and audiobooks that I've heard or I've seen that we can just use on really bad days, or switch to if a day suddenly just goes bad. I might have a really stressful conversation, and once that's done, my brain is done. Maybe the hospital called about billing and insurance, or they're moving an appointment, or I'm fighting for something. And by the time I finish navigating that, my brain is like, haha, you're done. But I'm like, well, that's great, but it's only 10:30 in the morning. I need to be able to pull something up because it happens too often for me to be able to just say like, okay, well, we're not schooling today. This is my reality. And so I need to have a backup plan. And then the other thing too is don't forget outsourcing. There are loads of options for outsourcing. We talk about it on lots of different podcasts. Whether you are doing it virtually or in person, you can do classes, you can do camps. Sometimes it's really useful to be able to send your kiddo off for a week-long camp where they just have fun and learn something new, and you can catch up on your sleep, or you can go to all of those appointments that you've been needing to do, or whatever the case may be. You can do local tours where you don't have to be the one sharing information. You just kind of have to be present. Online tutors can be really helpful, programs at the library. There are just so many options for different ways to outsource depending on where you're at and exactly what you need, given your specific needs of the day, the week, the season. You do not have to be the one teaching every subject to your child every day.
Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh, no. That's not no, that's not how things are working here.
Yeah.
But let's wrap up with some things that you can do to support homeschool friends or community members who are homeschooling while also navigating life with chronic illness. So first, don't judge them when plans change. There was a post not that long ago about like how flaky homeschoolers are. Did you see that one?
I
It was,
did.
yeah. And I
And
was like,
I scrolled past because, like I said, I've been feeling off and I can't always be as nice as I want to be. And a lot of times I stop and I type the comment and then I'm like, delete, 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 delete.
yeah,
Scroll on by.
that's it. I mean, I was telling Amanda right before this, there was something I was trying to do. I don't even remember what. And I was like, oh, I know. I was saying I need to go for pelvic floor therapy. But I'm like, I can't schedule it right now because I have a kid who's been struggling for months and months and months and with a chronic condition, different than what you're talking about, but still. And I'm like, I can't plan anything. because I never know when we're going to be okay and when we're going to be not okay. And
Yeah.
I'm tired of feeling like a flake for bailing at the last minute, because there's people who go in Facebook groups and write posts like, why are homeschool people so flaky? So there you have it.
Yep.
So yeah, don't judge them when their plans change. Sometimes they can't commit until the last minute, or they have to cancel at the last minute. Shit happens. Okay. And they'd probably much rather have been there than cancel at the last minute and disappoint their kid. And if they're canceling, it's because they feel like crap. And I bet they don't want to feel like crap. Right. So hello, you can offer to host a park day. Even better if you can coordinate with them and make it a regular thing, so that every week it's not taxing on their spoon quantities to be like, well, this day works for me. Well, that day doesn't work for me. Well, how about this day? Well, what about this day? Like every Friday at 2 p.m. Oh my gosh. Just knowing that that exists is so much less mental lift. It's fantastic.
Oh.
Come to them. Maybe not necessarily to their house unless they ask you to, but maybe offer to meet in their neighborhood, minimize their driving, meet them at a halfway point instead of having to drive kids fully back and forth. Sometimes, I know when we lived in North Carolina, the sprawl was huge and all I did was drive. So if you can do that, offer to take their kids on a field trip if it's something that, especially if it's something that's going to involve a lot of walking or like a super hot day or something like that. And you're like, hey, does your kiddo want to tag along with us? Because I'm totally game to bring them. That would be awesome. And then that way they don't have to take on an entire week off before and after the field trip just to accomplish the field trip,
Yeah.
right? Send a just checking in with them. I cannot tell you how much those messages mean. When my husband had cancer, I had a friend who texted me almost every day for 2 years to be like, I'm going to the supermarket. Do you need anything? And the number of times that I would be like, holy crap, yes, I just ran out of milk. Or like, one kid is throwing up. Can you please bring Gatorade and saltines or something? And she wouldn't come in because then it was going to be a whole thing where we had to talk, and she would just leave them on my porch and just drop off whatever I needed. And it's been a decade. And still, I'm like, she saved my ass so many times during that period. I cannot even tell you. So just check in, see how they're doing this week. Ask them if they need anything. It can be a little bit tricky though sometimes to just open ended. If you ever need anything, you know how people say that? If you ever
Yeah.
need anything, let me know. Sometimes it's just better to offer specific things, or if you know about specific things, if you're a really good listener and you know specific things that they've told you before kind of situation. I have a standard thing that when somebody has a death in the family, I send a massive thing of paper plates, bowls, disposable cutlery, and cups, because I feel like if you say, can I do anything? Nobody's ever going to be like, I can't get caught up on dishes. Can you come over and but if you just send a big thing and then they're like, oh, thank goodness. The last person that I did it for, though, they're super like, we're all environmentally conscious, I think, in our community, but this person is like super duper. So I had to buy utensils that were made of like avocado pits and stuff, because otherwise she would feel guilty using them. And
I
it was
have
like a
those.
freaking fortune. She got a little bit less than most people do, I'll admit. But I knew if I sent her something else, she'd feel guilty doing it. And I didn't want to add to her level of guilt. So I was like, here's your avocado composted plates. They probably melted while they were eating off of them, but as long as she was happy, I'm glad. So yeah, whatever you can do.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, though. Sometimes it takes more energy to figure out what to ask for, or
Yeah.
you have to get over the feeling bad about asking for something. Whereas if someone is specifically like, hey, I'm making this and I have enough to make a second batch. Would you
Yes.
like me to bring it over for dinner tonight? Or can I bring it over? You can even put it in the fridge or the freezer for another day. I'll leave instructions. It's so much easier to say, that would be amazing. Yes, thank you so much. Than like, hey, can I get you dinner tonight? And like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know what everyone else wants. I don't know. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And then, but that also brings up another point. Like, please don't get upset or mad when you send a text and they don't respond. Like, so often, chronic illness involves brain fog or memory issues or even just chronic fatigue. And that stuff all comes and goes. But it does mean that things like messages sometimes just get forgot. It just kind of falls off your plate. And instead of getting mad or hurt, just send a gentle bump reminder a few days or a week later. It does not need to be bigger than that. I would guess the vast, vast, vast majority of the time they are not blowing you off. Their mind is just a chaotic place that forgot.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that as an ADHDer. I feel like all the time I start messages was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot to answer your message. Because a lot of times I'm going in to ask them something and then it feels like, oh great, I ignored your last message, but now here I am showing up to ask for something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, I don't want them to feel, but like, that's just my brain is a chaotic mess for an entirely different reason. But yeah, you do feel like you spend an awful lot of time apologizing for something that wasn't intentional and that you didn't mean to do. Well, that's the meaning of intentional, but there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I will say one of my best friends recently made a rule that we are not allowed to start a text message with, I'm sorry that I forgot, or I'm
Oh
sorry I
my
didn't
gosh,
get
I
back
love
to you
that.
sooner. She's like, I understand. You understand. Like, we're all good. Sometimes it's a week between messages. Sometimes it's only 30 minutes between messages. Never apologize. And so there's never an apology in there for missing a message or taking too long. And it's so nice. It's taken so much because, I mean, you just stress about that. And then you feel
Yes.
like, are they actually going to accept it as an apology? Do they really feel, or are they like, oh, she's being flaky again? So, yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right. So, bottom line, we've said this before. It applies to chronic illness. It applies to everyone. There is no single right way to homeschool. And if you're coming to homeschooling with chronic illness, your homeschool might look different, and that's okay. Kids can and often do thrive in a flexible learning environment. That's one of the hallmarks of our podcast is that Amanda and I function entirely differently. We homeschool entirely differently. Everything is so different about us. Her kiddo's amazing, and I'm happy for all of his wins and everything they're doing. And I know Amanda is supportive of what we're doing. It's okay. And if your homeschool community isn't like that, come hang out with us. We have an online community that will cheer you on, even if your homeschool looks completely different, even if your kids ate cereal 3 times yesterday. We're all there for you. It's okay.
Yep.
So don't forget to give yourself plenty of compassion and plenty of empathy. You aren't perfect, but I don't have chronic illness, and neither am I, and neither is anyone else, and neither is that influence in her freaking floral dresses. She's faking it, and she's cashing the check for all your views. So there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect segue for this week's mantra. I'm not even positive we need the mantra, but it's a good one. So we'll go ahead and put it out there. So this week, chronic illness may change the path, but it doesn't close the door.
No, come homeschool. And listen, I'll just say, Amanda does homeschool coaching. So if you're like, okay, I get it. I understand that you're telling me that I can do this, but I have no idea where to start because my brain is foggy and I can't get two thoughts to line up. Go chat with Amanda. Go talk to her and she'll help you figure out what your kids need, how you can schedule it, how you can pace it, what sort of systems you can put into place. She has years of experience. So there's a link for that in the show notes as well. But go. And you'll notice that Amanda doesn't have a huge availability because she's managing her spoons, but grab a time spot where she has one. So,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
it will be the best money you've ever spent. So yeah, very good.
Well, that was
No
very kind.
pressure.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not going to swear that it's going to be the best money you ever spent, but I will
I
agree
will.
that you will see, yeah, that in even in this life and this part-time job and all of that, you do have to manage your time and your spoons. And you can see that in my availability. It's an excellent example of making those tough decisions and being really brutally honest about your energy levels. It's just how it works.
And we make it work. Yep.
Yep.
It all works. So friends, happy homeschooling. Support your chronic illness friends. Chronic illness friends. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Have a great one.